Hey everybody! Because of the special nature of this particular custom, I actually posted the work in progress photos on my public DeviantArt page rather than my Patreon gallery. This is because of circumstances I'll explain in the rest of the video, but you can still support me on Patreon because the link is still below. Go ahead.
Is this 3D printed?
Yep.
Did you paint her?
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh, Danny, I love it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah, that's right. This figure was a little birthday present from my cousin. Now the funny thing, Raven, I don't think I've ever really brought this up, but she was the first person that I ever made a custom toy for. It was a little keychain minifigure of Rouge the Bat, very much like this one on screen. That was like over 10 years ago. I think I was fresh out of college and I was just getting into the whole making little things with clay thing. So yeah, she's the very first person that I ever made a custom toy for once I learned how to sculpt. So I figured since I'm just learning how to 3D print, it would be appropriate for the very first toy I make to also be a little gift for her. And Rouge the Bat is her favorite character, so you know, it all has to come back to this flirtatious, busty bat figure, doesn't it? Okay, I know I've kind of been all over the special nature of this particular custom, like there was all that stuff before the theme song, but there is one more thing, and that's, I'd like to thank Corey SonicFan22. He's a fellow guy on DeviantArt. He makes 3D models, and so what he did here was he ripped the 3D model of Rouge the Bat from Sonic Forces, and he used Blender to cut it apart and make it into a buildable action figure, which would have the same level of articulation as the Jazzwares figures. His little model blueprint is actually really good, and theoretically, if all this could be put together perfectly, it would make a pretty darn awesome figure. The problem is, well, I'll get into problems later on. So you remember my time-lapse photo where I was printing out Rouge's head. That's the one to the right here. His original file is a little bit oversized. I think if assembled it would be maybe 4.5 inches tall or so. So I downscaled it to you know, be actually in scale with the rest of the Jazzwares line. That's what you're seeing here. To the right is a head that's been scaled down to actually be Jazzwares sized. Now I know in this picture it looks really crappy, but that's just because it's done in draft quality. I was just that was just a test print to make sure that it would be the right size. So the head that I would actually use to make the figure itself is actually of a much better quality. Again, you'll see it later in the video. Now this is where the problems came in, unfortunately. Okay, so here's the 3D print of the torso. As you can see in the back, there's a couple of rods. The wings are actually meant to clip into those so that they can actually flap. He really thought ahead with the articulation. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if it's a product of the downscaling or just because I'm not really familiar with all the ins and outs of my printer, because like 3D printing is an art, not a science. So there were defects. It's more visible on the inside. There's supposed to be divots where you're supposed to be able to put the pin discs, the mushroom caps, to allow the joints to take place, but they didn't print out right. They were malformed. They were too small. I just wouldn't be able to make, you know, the actual joints as he intended to print them. It just, like I said, I'm not sure if it's just my lack of skill with 3D printing or a product of the downsizing. I'm leaning more towards the fact that I still have a ways to go, but I couldn't print the joints. So that means that I would have to get joints from another source. In this case, I found that, funnily enough, by complete sheer coincidence, the joints of a Mega Construx minifigure are actually the perfect size to fit within this body that I made. And you know, so I could have the articulation that way. So it would require me to cut apart the inside of here, and in order to get, you know, the joints into place. I started with the legs because you know, I had this very convenient ball socket hip joint thing going on. And I did have to cut off the big mushroom cap stem because that would be a lot of unnecessary drilling I'd have to do. But in the end, I was able to make a nice little hip assembly that, in addition to shaving down material from the hips of the Mega Bloks figure, I was able to give Rouge a nice pair of ball jointed legs, which would have a fairly wide range of motion. She can't do a full splits, but she can kick, and she can have an A stance, and she can walk and step, and all that good stuff. But let's get back to stuff that was 3D printed. So here's some more stuff that I got from Corey's model. They are, of course, Rouge's hands, feet, and her head, done in the high quality print rather than draft quality. And I also included an arm and a leg. That thing to the left is the arm, and the thing on the right is the leg. Now there we can see the limitations of my printer. As you can see, they did not come out very good. Anything that seems to require joints, like, it just didn't work out well. This has absolutely nothing to do with Corey. His model is fine. It's just that I still need to work on my 3D printing skills. I need to find a way to reconfigure the settings to make sure that it can print these things with better fidelity. But as I wanted to get this done in time for Raven's birthday, I didn't really have time to learn all that stuff. So what I did was I took these parts that I printed and attached them to the bits of the Mega Construx figure to actually get my joints. So here are the arms. I actually found that, aside from the hand, the arms are the perfect length to be, a Sonic figures. So I just had to cut the hand down to a little nub that I could attach Rouge's hand to, and that would make an arm that would fit onto this torso perfectly naturally looking. A little bit of sculpting, like the big old cuff that's up on her bicep, and to hide the scar around her wrist. Don't worry, the wrist articulation was still preserved, and that made a very good, Rouge the Bat base arm kind of thing. In retrospect, I really should have used a Tila figure because she has skin tone arms instead of red, so that would have been less of a headache to paint over. But hindsight's 20/20. In the future, I'll make sure that when I use a Mega Construx figure for this kind of thing, I'll try to color match the figure to the figure I'm actually making, so I don't have to worry about this so much, because that plastic's actually kind of hard to paint. So yeah, fully painted up, we have the upper body. If you want to know how I stuck the shoulders in, I simply used a drill to drill a hole into the sides. I was very careful about the size of the hole because the arms would need to go in there snugly enough that they wouldn't fall back out, but they would also still be able to move. So yes, rest assured there is enough friction to keep the arms moving in there without them falling out. I actually, that's just actually my skill as a driller. I'm still good at the old traditional arts, even if I'm not a great 3D printer just yet. And I simply repeated the exact same process on the legs. Although the hardest part here was cutting off the Mega Construx foot so that I could attach Rouge's actual foot. And yes, I did measure, and that's actually the reason why I printed out the arm and the leg. It wasn't just to show you, it was so that I could make sure I trimmed down the Mega Construx arm and leg to the proper size to fit onto this without Rouge's arms and legs being too long or too short. So yeah, that's her legs. It's, like I said, exact same process that I did with the arms. A little bit simpler because the legs have fewer parts. And then there are the wings. They're also 3D printed, but the back part of the wing looked kind of ugly. The scaffolding that printed out to support them kind of left a bunch of scars on the back. So I covered the back part of the wing with a very thin veneer of epoxy sculpt. And then I painted them. It's actually a dark purple color. It's purple paint with just a little bit of black added, although it comes out very dark and the camera almost can't tell the difference. But I assure you, if you look real close, you would find that it's actually just a really, really deep purple. And all I had to do was glue them onto her back. Again, the joints just would not print properly, so I wasn't able to give her the flapping articulation that Corey intended. At some future date, when I'm really good at working my printer, I will try this again, and she will be in the full glory that Corey intended, but for now, this was the best I could do. So that being said, let's take a look at the rest of the Rouge figure from other perspectives so I can talk about this. So here we go. This bat is a very popular subject to be made into customs and artwork, and I'd like to think that there's more to it than just the fandom's libido, if you get what I'm saying. But yeah, she has a very special attachment to me. Like I said, she was the first figure I ever made for somebody else, and she's one of the most popular characters and most requested characters to be made into a figure that has yet to receive an official figure. She never got one from Jazzwares, and she's yet to get one from Tomy. Even if does Tomy even still have the license? Because I haven't really heard a peep from them for quite a while. But this is as close to an official quality Rouge figure I could make. And just for the sake of comparison, here's my other two Rouge figures. To the left is the Tomy styled one that I made using a Jazzwares figure, an Elastigirl figure, and to the right is my Jazzwares quality one, which I made using a Wave figure. So in the middle is a 3D printed one, and you can actually get a full comparison, like how did I sculpt the heads, how did the body proportions look, all that good stuff. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this figure, and I hope I get better at 3D printing in the future. This is Wake Angel 2001, signing off.